Welcome to the Real Estate Reserve podcast. I'm Jason Balin from Hard Money Bankers and Ian Horowitz from Equity Warehouse. If you're tuning in for the first time, welcome. We promise you are going to have a lot of fun, hopefully learn something as well. And if you're a regular follower, viewer, listener, welcome back. I'm glad you've enjoyed previous episodes, and we will make this one as entertaining as well. Today, we've got a pretty exciting guest that we will bring on in a second, Mike Fallat. We're going to be talking about his company and how he writes books for entrepreneurs and real estate investors and business owners to help accelerate their business. As you guys know, myself and my partner have written a few books. Ian's written a book, and typically it's a great kind of front door to help accelerate your business, show everybody in your space that you're an authority figure, you know what the heck you're talking about, that you're an expert. So it's definitely going to be a good topic. But more importantly, we're going to talk to Mike about, how he started his entrepreneurial journey, where he got started. Why did he want to start writing books? It doesn't seem like a most sexy topic to me, but for him, it might be. So we're going to see where this conversation goes, right, Ian?
Yeah, man, I'm excited to talk about it because I despised writing my book, even though it was a great idea, and I'm glad that I listened to you and a few other people who suggested it. But that's what you got to do, and luckily nowadays there's better ways to write a book than rather than just with your own hands. Actually, I'm messing around with our intern. He just found Captionator, which I'm sure Rowena uses, who's our VA, to come up with all the badass reels, and he's out there. He's like geeking, and then I just keep going back to the AI episode that we did, thinking about, man, maybe there will be a time when we just like write a book and it won't be like stupidly hard. But I think Mike's done a good job of making it easy in today's world. So I'm excited to bring him in. But guys, before we jump in, if you guys get any value out of this, if you want to, like or share it, if you get value, please, pass the word. That's the biggest compliment you can get. We don't ask for any money. We don't bring on gurus. We just bring on real people doing real things. And with that being said, why don't we just bring in Mike right now?
Mike, how are you?
Oh, thrilled to be here. Thanks, guys. I appreciate that. When you just said AI, I got all excited because I'm into video.ai right now, and it'll change your life if you're out there creating videos and just, little clips that you can post. So it seems like you're speaking my language already.
Yeah, we're always messing around with it, and it's funny because like sometimes like I'll go in a wave and I'll be like, Jay, like you gotta check out this shit, and he's like not in the right mental place, and then I'll be like, yo, I found all this stuff, and I'm like, I'm not like I have no desire to talk about this right now because there's just like it's changing every day. Like it's just you can't even. I know this isn't an AI episode, but I'm just gonna ask you right now, like that shit's changing every day. How do you even keep up with all of it?
Oh yeah, it's a definite game changer. I think you need to jump on it now just to understand it, because 5 years from now it's going to be such a part of your day that you need to be a master of it. Very much like virtual assistants, right? People who are playing at that level, at the highest level, are using virtual assistants, and it's only going to be more normal 5 years from now. So start getting very well involved in that world, because those who master these new technologies will just reap all the rewards in the future.
No doubt. Why don't we start with a quick intro about who Mike is?
Yeah. So you said right at the beginning what got me started in the book creation process. This book behind me, I have it behind me constantly, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I mean, have you read this book?
Of course.
Please tell me. I mean, it's like the Bible of real estate, right?
Yeah.
Total game changer. I didn't care at all about reading. I didn't write well in school. I didn't do anything really. I just got the B's and C's just to pass school. But I was 22 years old, and my employer gave me Rich Dad, Poor Dad to read. And he was a millionaire, and he was the only millionaire that I ever knew. So I trusted his word. Whenever he said, do this, go here, whatever, I just listened to him. He gave me Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I put the book down. My life was changed, and I thought to myself, why in the hell did I go to college? Right away. Like, what am I doing? School never taught me this. And that's whenever I started to get into the real estate world. 22 years old, I got my real estate license right after reading that book. Within 6 months, I bought my first 4-unit building, and I was off and running. And I thought I was king shit. Once I had my first property at 23, man, here I'm an entrepreneur. I really thought highly of myself. But then the tenant problems started to happen, right? People stealing from me, fixing toilets at 9 o'clock at night, killing bees on Sundays, outside. It was just rough. And so I started to get very creative and say, you know what? I like the entrepreneur world, but how can I start businesses? I love starting things from the ground up. So I started a business. It failed. Started 3 more. They all failed. I started a 5th one while I was severely in debt, called Doggy Surprise. I'm a major dog lover, so I'm like, well, let me break everything down into a system that, I could even explain to a 7-year-old. I'm going to send you dog treats and gifts every once in a while, and you pay me a monthly subscription, very similar to BarkBox. So easy, so basic, and it worked. And once I started to make some money, individuals came to me with advice. Hey, it looks like you know what you're doing. Family and friends didn't really feel bad for me anymore. They thought I was like, oh, he knows what he's doing. So I started answering questions about how to start a company, build a brand, make some money. And it wasn't that much money, but I was making some. And that's when the light bulb went on. And I said, you know what? Why don't I put all of this information into a book? The girl I was dating at the time, luckily, was an editor. She was like a librarian. So free labor right out of the gate. She edited the book. I put it up on Amazon. And then I asked the guy in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I'm located, hey, you became a bestseller. How did you do that? So I sat down with him for an afternoon. He taught me the bestseller strategy on how to do it. And right around January 2016, I put myself out on Amazon, became a bestseller, and my life was never the same. Individuals started coming to me more and more, and it was just wild to see what happened on social media, speaking gigs, the attention, game changer. So I turned that idea into a publishing company simply for entrepreneurs. And since then, we've worked with over 300 entrepreneurs, turning them from an idea, an entrepreneur, into an authorpreneur, into a best-selling author. And ever since then, we've helped them, get speaking gigs, podcast interviews, fulfillment center, automation, email, text message, workflow. And it's been a wild ride ever since.
Yeah, no, it is a life-changing experience writing a book. Not only just coming up with the thoughts, whether you use a ghostwriter or actually sitting down and penning it yourself, but more importantly, I think, and Jason, I know this is one of the reasons you convinced me to do it, and it took me a little bit to get over the hump. Was it you gain almost instant credibility, right? And I think that's a huge thing when writing books. I know Jason's written 3 books, and he could probably talk more to it. But for me, it was like credibility, and then it was like, okay, we have a book. So like when we talk to an investor, it's like, hey, we're so and so. I'm Ian and Dan from Equity Warehouse. Then they go home, they Google us. Well, Amazon pops up. Boom, there we have a book. There we have our reels. There we have everything else. And I think Jason, you have the same experience too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The root word for authority is author, right? That's the beautiful part about this. By doing a book, you have something that most people do not, and you're accomplishing something that most people want to accomplish. So you have a book, you have something that's teaching another person on how to solve a problem, and you're making your thoughts tangible. You're becoming very clear-minded. The market knows what you're all about. And now you can use this as a ticket into rooms and opportunities that you would never have otherwise.
Yeah. And, it's interesting because, like, we look back, my business partner, Chris, and I wrote our first book. It was called The Whiteboard. Go from, like, whatever, a blank slate to whatever. I don't even remember what the heck it was because it was so darn long. It's sitting over there. It's so darn long ago. But it was interesting because we didn't look at that as like a business. We didn't look at that as like a front end marketing machine. Like, it was just something we were passionate about that we had to get on paper. Like, that's all it was. And $15,000 1 year later, maybe $25,000 1 year later, we're like, why did we even write this book? Like, we're not going to back this out. We're not going to sell any of these copies, which was true. It was just something that we were really passionate about, and we wanted to get on paper. Like, it wasn't like we're doing like business consulting or anything like that. It didn't really suit that. Besides that, it was really, really it was kind of just something that we were just at the time really, really interested in, being entrepreneurs, being business owners, and things like that. Our next 2 books, Property Hackers and Hard Money Secrets, that ended up being more like, hey, we're the authority figure in this space. We use that as kind of a growth mechanisms, a front door just to capture people's attention. So we kind of went in a little bit of a different direction, the way that we did it. But it's it is interesting. It is interesting, and I think that anybody listening or viewing this, most of our audience is real estate investors, and I think that good things can happen by that. Imagine having a book on real estate investing or working with distressed homeowners or something like that, and actually providing that to a distressed seller in the house. How much value you can provide on that. Like, there's so many different variations online and offline that having some sort of publication, some sort of book can provide to somebody.
What do you think is the hardest part about what you do? I mean, do you get a consistent flow of questions that are in regards to raising money or finding deals or operations? Like, what do you see as a trend? Because I'm going to do a little experiment with you here in a second.
So inside our business, so what you just said are the exact three
Correct.
tiers. And in everybody real estate investing business, that's what it is. You need access to capital, you need access to deals, you need access to operations and know it all. And in essence, those are all about a third in value. Right.
So,
and go ahead.
Yeah. So what I would say is, if you're struggling in one area, what you need to do is now you need to attract opportunities in that area. Everybody's chasing for that deal, chasing money. My philosophy when you put a book out there, and this is just a tool that I've bought into completely, is that you use it as a way to attract eyeballs and attention and resources. So if I'm struggling to get people to buy into my book business, I need to become a master story seller. And this is what exactly I did with my second book. I said, what are people struggling with? Well, they need to turn their story into something that's attractive, because that is the most attractive part about somebody. So why don't I write a book called Attractive Story Selling? That way I brand myself as the individual who has the solution for what they need. So when they are looking for it on Amazon or Google or social media, I have the answer. So they come to me for that. And if you're out there and you have all of the other aspects in regards to real estate investing, but you are struggling with other people's money, but you do know it really well and how to make more money with other people's money, talk about how you can help people increase their passive income. You have the solution for passive income. If you just teach people what you can do with it, how you do it, individuals who are looking to not be active at all are going to see you as the passive income investor. And they're going to see you and they're going to say, you know what, I'm going to get his book to see a little bit about how he does it. Oh my God, he went through a divorce. Oh my God, he loves dogs. Oh my God, he's from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. This guy, I like him. I know him. I trust him. Let me jump on a call. The relationship is built. And you do that over and over and over, and you nurture that relationship into a real client or an ally, and then you just do business together, and it should be that easy.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. I didn't really think about it in that way, but I guess it's kind of like, when we do case studies of like, all right, it wasn't in written format, but like I do case studies on what has worked for us to then build the credibility to say, hey, we've raised other people's money and we've invested in these deals, and then they feel comfortable because it's like, hey, I'm so-and-so, and that person looks like them, and they build that credibility. What I was going to say in regards to the book is I kind of looked at it in a different way, was we're really good at execution and operations, and a lot of people would always ask us that. So then we wrote a book on that, so people would stop asking us because you go to every single event. I'm like, well, just buy the book. But then more importantly, you become that dominant person in that space. So when a really goofy operational property comes available and they're like, well, nobody else can handle this. Like that Frederick Avenue is a great example, Jason, or Mike, you don't know it, but Jason invested in that deal, is our Frederick Avenue. It is a foreclosure. It's a nightmare, but people came to us because they know that we've expressed how good we are at executing on those types of properties in a really distressed way. And I feel like that's something else that can come through when you're trying to attract people to say, hey, I'm looking for money, so I'm going to show you how we do passive income. But also, I'm really good at this one thing, right? Like, we're really good at executing. Jason's really good at originating and marketing, right? Like, there's a whole different level of stuff. And I think that comes through as you start to write these books as well.
Damn straight. I mean, I would assume that your ability to articulate your solutions has increased since you started writing it down, right? Because your thought process, I mean, writing is the deepest level of thought. Jordan Peterson always says that. And if you can write and you can speak, you can become very, very dangerous in this world. So by writing, you become naturally a better communicator. And individuals are looking for competent individuals just to do business with, to hang around, to follow. And if you really want to break down who you invest with, it's probably someone who lives the ideal life or is doing something that you want to do, right? Maybe they drive the fancy cars, they have the freedom lifestyle, they're on the private jets, or they just figured it out. They have the family life, they have the look. And if everybody has that checkbox list of things that they need to check off before doing business with someone, I guarantee they need to be an authority in the space. They need to be a speaker. They need to have been doing it for many years. They need to be a best-selling author. They need to be around badass people, a part of these masterminds, right? Check off all those boxes and you get the deal.
Yeah, no doubt. So what do you recommend some of these folks do? Do you think should they write their own book themselves? Should they get a ghostwriter? You know, like what's kind of the best way? And I know your company kind of does. You know, I'm sure they have a suite of services, but like, what does the normal person do?
Yeah, so
the average person do.
Well, let's just talk about real estate individuals. And your hourly rate is probably pretty high. So the last thing you should do, especially if you have a real business, especially in real estate, is sit down and write your own book. I mean, the reason why I built this company and the way I did is because after reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then 7 years later realizing that he never wrote that book. It was Sharon Lechter that actually brought the words to life on the page, and then he adjusted it. And then if you really want to get crazy, it might not even be his story. It might be Keith Cunningham's. So you realize how the great ones do it. It's the who, not how approach. So if you have a real business, the last thing you should do is spend time doing something that's a non-revenue producing activity. And writing a book is actually a non-revenue producing activity. The marketing and the courses and the membership and the deal flow and all the meetings, the presentations, that's revenue producing. So you should hire someone to bring it to life for you. Now, there is AI. We talked about that in the very beginning. AI can help you out in, hey, can you write a book about real estate? That's great. What's different about that type of system as compared to ours is we have a human, it's me, interviewing people and asking you questions, the Socratic method. Lesson, story, lesson, story. If you have AI write the book, it's going to sound like every other book. But what makes your book different is the personal stories associated with the lessons. So I recommend anybody out there hire a ghostwriter. The ghostwriter will ask better questions than you can possibly ask yourself because you know your life and the ghostwriter doesn't. So when you do that and you can communicate it on camera to someone else and you have to think it through, the writer is going to pull out the nuggets. Okay, that's important, that's important, that's important. Let's put it together in a very streamlined approach. Let's put it together so it's a value add to the reader. It gets people to fall in love with your backstory. This book can now be done in a very short amount of time. And our fees are much lower than most of our competitors. Our biggest competitors just went out of business last week. It was called Scribe Media. It was a company that was actually started by a man named Tucker Max. And he wrote, I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell. Very smart dude, all that. I don't know if he was a part of it at the very end, but they just went out of business and they were charging right around $50,000 to $100,000. We charge $15,000 because we're able to break everything down into basically a 4.5-hour interview process, usually from start to finish, 90 days from 0 to 100, from 0 to best-selling book. So if you're able to consolidate all of that time down and have someone else sit down and write most of the content and spend the 110, 120 hours writing the book, while you as the investor, the entrepreneur, go out there and continue focusing on those revenue-producing activities, your book will get done more professionally and efficiently.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. And that's how we all approached it. You know, to sit down and write it is hard, but you're going down, outlining it, and even just like trying to write a white paper is hard. And I would ask you is, you know, someone's looking to get into it and like thinking that they don't have a story to tell. I think, and that was one thing that I struggled with. I noticed just by doing like a white paper first, like dabbling, and I'm like, All right, man. Like, all right, I like this. And it's fun because like I went to an event. Here you go, storytelling. I went to an event and I was like giving something out. I hit my lady up and I said, "Hey, I need to write a white paper on the hottest asset class, which is self-storage, and how to navigate it." So we wrote a white paper on it like super quick, but then we handed it to everyone and they have something. And I don't know if you have much to talk about the difference between like a book and a white paper, and like where you should spend time with hiring someone like you versus trying to do it on your own, like kind of what you think about those things.
Yeah, so I like what you just said there. Having something's better than nothing. And if you become a person that has the service mindset, you will stand above the rest. By giving away information, ideas, and tips, you can stand apart from every other entrepreneur. So a white paper is great. The difference between a white paper, a PDF, or just an ebook and a book itself is that you just look a little bit more refined, right? Tony Robbins doesn't have a white paper. He has a book, right? Jordan Peterson has 12 rules for life. You give enough content that could be multi-purposed over every platform. Every Instagram post, every Facebook post can be taken from your book. You can have virtual assistants go through your book, pull bits and pieces. You can set up email workflows. You can actually have AI in your voice take bits and pieces of the book and post it out on your social media. So it's these little clips of your videos. You don't have to worry about anything as long as the book is done. So the book can be multi-purpose, but it does make you just look way, way more professional. And when you're a best-selling author, you have this thing called social proof, social evidence that you can't get any other way. So best-selling author, what does that mean really? Well, it just means that the market has already proven you to be a winner. And if you do that enough times, you have enough trophies around you, it's going to make it very easy for the marketplace to say you're the guy. And I keep thinking about that Jordan Peterson philosophy that your job is to make it as easy as possible for the marketplace to invite you into their world for opportunities, right? Get invited to play lots of games. And if you get invited to play lots of games, you can win lots of games. So just make it easy for people to know what you're all about, the lessons you can help them understand, the stories that taught you the lessons, and what you will be able to do with them or for them if they hang around you long enough.
So it's interesting that Rich Dad Poor Dad book went from Rich Dad Poor Dad to kind of bypass real estate. Not that you didn't dabble in real estate, right? But like you dabbled a little bit. But most people, when you hear, "Oh, hey, I love Rich Dad Poor Dad, my favorite book," blah blah blah, it gets into, "Hey, I became a real estate investor. I started wholesaling, or I flipped some properties. I bought a rental real estate. I did some other stuff." You kind of just bypassed all that, and then was like, "Hey, I just want to create an income producing business." Is that right? Or is like what? Like
Great
what?
Point. Well, I got the 4-unit building. I was off and running, and I realized it wasn't my bread and butter. I still invest right now in self-storage. It taught me the principles of going from employee, right, to self-employed, to business owner, to investor, and going to that right side of the quadrant. That's the greatest takeaway. And once I figured out, okay, I do not want to be an employee for that long. I need to get to self-employed, and then I need to jump to business owner. It's almost like it just gave me a roadmap. And then it also showed me that we did a book with Mark Evans called Magician vs. Mule. And it taught me the difference of what my dad and my mom taught me about money as compared to what the wealthy do. I never really understood about how you can't save your way to millions. You can't. Nope. And Kiyosaki and Mark Evans and all these people who know wealth showed me how important it is. Yeah, there you go. We did that book. That was one of the big ones we did a couple years ago. And it showed me how I need to invest. And I'm the outsider in my family, right? Everybody else is all about the 9-to-5 job. And it took me a while to break away and be different for a while before they trusted me. But Rich Dad Poor Dad was the one that said, you know what, your mindset is messed up. You're wrong if you stay here. Yeah. So you need to break out and just get into business building.
Yeah, I mean, those quadrants are very life-changing for a lot of people, a lot of folks. And folks don't even realize what quadrant they're in half the time, which is sad. And I mean, that's always been, I don't know. That's just been like a freaking roadmap. Just is. It's a roadmap. And, you know, and it's because a lot of folks, they go from employee to self-employed, but it's like, yeah, but you're still kind of an employee of your own business. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, it's just your own business, but like you make the same amount of money as you working at your competitors across the street, but you're taking on all the risk. And
It's
I
not
don't know.
freedom,
It's
right? You think you have freedom, but you
yeah.
really do not have freedom.
I feel bad. I actually really one of the things sometimes I really feel bad for self business owners that don't realize the situation that they're in. Right? Like a lot of folks that are employees and they do a regular 9 to 5 and potentially they're somewhat happy with their job and and their line of business and stuff. And they have the don't get me wrong, they don't have unlimited freedom, but they have the freedom that outside of 9 to 5 boundaries, they can do whatever they want, right? Like they have that freedom. They don't have to take their work home with them. They don't have risk. Their risk is obviously the downsizing and getting fired, which is a major risk. But besides that, like at least it's just not all the weight's not on their shoulders. But I think a business owner that is in that rat race, I think is right because they have risk. They leave work and they still have it on their mind. They can't go out of business because then they have their employees that are going to lose their jobs and can't feed their families. So I feel like that you got it. That hump is the hardest hump to get over.
Mhm.
I do. And I feel bad. I'm kind of the weirdo that looks around at all these like businesses that I go into, retail businesses and stuff like that. And I'm like, I feel bad for your situation. You're working your ass off right here. You're not making a ton of money. On the surface, it seems like you're happy, and maybe you're happy because you're providing value to some people, but like you're never this operation, you are never going to be financially free. You're never going to be, and there's zero intrinsic value to this business.
Can't sell it. Great point.
There's zero value to it, and yeah, you're making your whatever $50,000 a year, 100. That doesn't matter. Whatever that number is, you're making that, but like you're stuck. Like you remove yourself, like you can't afford a general manager. You don't make enough to do that, right? You can't afford operations person. Like that's got to be you. So I don't know. That's like one thing that I feel for. And I mean, obviously, it's just like anything else. Like everyone puts themselves in their own situation, and they can change if they choose to. But like I feel bad for that more than other things.
I just commend the entrepreneurial spirit, right? These people out there, they may think, okay, as long as I have my own business, I'm happy. But then there are levels to this game. You get around certain people like the Mark Evans, the Joe Evangelistes, and people out there who are doing big things, and you realize that they're playing this game at a different level and they see things. And as soon as you are in those rooms and listening to them and it sinks in, you can't unsee it ever again. So that's when you can go back to like those restaurants and those entrepreneurs who are struggling. They might not realize it. And you say, oh man, what you could do is this, 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 and this, and your life will be so different. But they can't even picture that next step because they have not been in those rooms. So that's the blessing of joining masterminds and having the right coaches in your life.
Yeah, I think having that, and that's where I've met a lot of people who we interview on here come through masterminds, and people who are on similar levels or trying to get to similar levels and taking the time to work on their businesses and their lives as a whole and moving along. But, in the same sense, it's like you look like Jason's talking about, like walking into a restaurant and you see the owners behind the stove. And I'm thinking, well, I know we just met Mike through a mutual friend a couple of weeks ago. And in like 2 seconds talking to you, I was like, there's no way he's writing the books, right? Like we know you have a team behind that, right? But someone out there's probably going, man, Mike sits down and writes all these goddamn books. I'm like, well, no, that's not the point of business, right? Like in pushing through and growing. And most people, I mean, and you're part of some of the same groups that I've been to, and one of the biggest takeaways I had from going to Tim Brotz's event was the talk and of going from 0 to 5 million, 5 to 10, 10 to 15. They all take something different. And too many people get to $5 million or whatever the number is, and they've hit their top tier, and they don't want to take the time to blow it all the fuck up, start over, and go from 5 to 10 million, and then 10 to 15. It sucks. We just went through it around here. I mean, we literally blew up accounting processes. We blew up how people communicate inside our company. We blew up who reports to who. We added employees. It was a fucking mess, dude, and it hurts. Like, it hurts. But you know what? You got to do it if you want to get to that next level and you want to create scale and not be behind the stove or not be writing the book every day or not running your portfolio every single day. And I think that's something that a lot of people need to recognize. And I think a lot of guys do it well. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, E-Myth, all those different books are out there, and it's all the same common talk.
Yeah. Every new level requires a different version of you and your team, and different standard operating procedures and different software. Everything is painful. The moment you get over that hurdle, it's like, I can't believe I lived any other way though, right? It's such a refreshing feeling. But that hill, which is required, it's painful. And every time you go from even going from $100,000 to $1 million, it's a different operation, different people involved, and it requires a whole another level of personal development. Jim Rohn always says that your income is directly proportional how much your personal development journey is. And you might have a lucky jump every once in a while, but eventually it will sink right back down to it.
Yep. Oh, it's family, it's life, it's health, and a lot of people are willing to sacrifice health in exchange for great family and great business, or vice versa. One of those three things, they don't always survive. And then it's like these levels as you like climb the tree for people to become successful. And I think that's why you need groups. Jason runs a group, I run a group, you're a part of groups. That's where you get it. That's where you see other people exactly like you that are going out there and grinding and having the same exact struggles, and what their businesses are, sitting in the room going, God damn, you got a bigger business than me and you got the same goddamn problems. All right, like we're on the right track. Or how'd you handle that? And that's what makes the things real. And again, I think going back to writing a book, you attract those people to you. They're like, yo, dude, I have the same story and this is how I handled stuff. And those people start reaching out to you. And I think that's very important of why you should always be sharing your story, picking a medium, whatever it is, books, video, podcast, however you want to get your content out there. I think that's really important. And actually, that's one thing I want to ask you is like, so, if you help someone write a book, like, how are you guys lead capturing? Because like, I know for us, we write a book and then it's like, we'll put stuff inside the book and people can find us and hopefully they find our name and track us. But, you doing any sales funnels or anything like that for people to come through and buy them?
100%. So we build funnels for our clients afterwards with our $1 million book agency, and free plus shipping is great. We have a client that does 70 books a day, right? He gives away 70 books a day. They pay $6.95 for shipping, and he's generating all of those leads. It's a home care company, and I guess we also have a company or a client that does a cleaning business, crushing, right? Generates tons of leads through Facebook and Instagram posts, and they're generating leads in their sleep. So what I recommend is once the book is done, you build the funnel. I recommend a free plus shipping funnel or some type of course or some type of membership. And as a bonus for joining up to pay for the course or for the membership, they get the book. And so then when you go on every podcast or every stage, you have a call to action. Guys, if you want to meet with me, go and schedule a time here, or watch my course here, or join my membership, or get a free copy of my book. All you got to do is pay for shipping. You're just promoting and promoting and promoting. It becomes very easy to do so. And if they go through that, if they go over that hurdle and into that portal, they get a copy of your book. And the moment they get that book, the odds of them throwing that book away, slim to none. People will put that book on their shelf or on their desk, and they're going to say, wow, that's really nice. I'll read it someday. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. And the best part about that, is you have the phone number, the address, the email. And as long as you know they got the book, you can continue to serve them with podcast episodes, with emails, with videos, and you serve until the trust is built up, the relationship capital is there, and then you eventually say, hey, I'm putting on a webinar. Would you like to show up? And then eventually you finally do business together. So it's just the start of it all. It's not the end all be all, but it is the beginning of a relationship. And you need to have the right funnel. We use Go High Level. If you guys want a free access to Go High Level, our services, it's $1milliondolarbookagency.com. But we recommend Go High Level. There are great ones out there like ClickFunnels. You can use the HubSpots of the world. It doesn't matter. Just find a CRM that you can work with, build the websites, have a call to action, a free plus shipping offer, and multi-purpose that book. Because if they get the book, that you can send them emails that are in regards to the book that are going to be a value add to their life.
And I mean, I can tell you this from experience that, there's folks in our email database since 2007 when we started that we're just doing our first loan for 16 years later. That's what it is. Like people and it's either they didn't have trust or they just didn't have a deal or anything ready to go. So, I mean, that's a whole different conversation or podcast, the importance of a database and nurturing them and your clients and things like that. But, so many in the real estate world, so many folks are just so bad about following up and creating an email database. I mean, think about this. Like, let's say, I do a marketing piece and I own a bakery and somebody comes into my bakery and it costs me money to get them in there and then they just leave. Right? Like that is a waste, right? Or if I'm paying real money to get people in my front door, you better be capturing their information, email, phone, address if you can. Snail mail still works, especially in the real estate investing space. So and what you said about, hey, you shipping them that book and that book sits there. You're right. Nobody throws away books. I'm looking at all kinds of crappy books right there that I have. I don't even read physical books because I listen to ebooks. I go through like an ebook once a week or an audio book once a week. So like all those physical books, like they're just there.
Bro, I got this book going to an event. And Mark, you owe us a podcast. That's my shout out. But I went to an event a year ago and this thing just sits up there on my thing. And the other week I was looking, I was like, oh, I'm going to Mark's event. Oh shit, there's this book. Hey, he owes me a podcast. I'm going to go hit him up. And I shot him a text, right? Like that's just how it works. And I think Jason's hitting the head on the point. You're a nail on the head. And you are too, of like, that book just lives there and it just stares at you. It's what do they call it? Like coffee table. It just sits on your coffee table and it stares at you till the point where you're fed up and you're like, fuck it, I'm going to go buy a house and I'm going to use hard money bankers or I'm going to go invest in self-storage. And I love what Ian talked about. Like, let's go talk to him, right? Like, and those are helpful of why you should be doing something like this.
You stay top of mind. That's the game plan, right? If you're top of mind, you're the hard money lender, right? And you are the go-to guy. You're just making it easy on them to make a decision. So top of mind in every which way. But guys, tell me how exciting it is when you meet with someone and they say, man, I read your book and I've been listening to you for hours and on your podcast.
Yep.
The deal's already done, right? You've already sold. Books are a way to pre-sell yourself. Podcasts are a way to pre-sell yourself. And you can take this book and if you put it up on Audible, which is very easy to do, and somebody listens to it for 4 hours, they are already invested in you. And if they ever meet you at an event and they meet you in person, the relationship's already there, 100%.
Yeah. And I can tell you from experience, and you guys probably can as well. If you have somebody who's following you because they read your book or listened to your podcast, they're a higher quality prospect or lead than any other thing. Our podcast is our number one front door. Number one front door for our business. No offense, Ian, not this podcast, but our other podcast that I do is our number one front door for our business, because that's just what it is. And people, they've kind of just been in. I don't even know who these people are at the beginning, right? They're just listening, they're listening, and they come out of the woodworks when the time is right, and they're extremely qualified. They put in the time. And I remember Russell Brunson said that at maybe like 4 funnel hacking lives ago. The highest quality client is always going to be a podcast listener. It's more affluent. Wow. It's the same thing. People that read books, listen to books, things like that, right? And in the real estate world and a lot of industries like that, it's, hey, I want to make money, biz op opportunities and stuff like that, which you don't want to attract people. No one's making money off people that don't have money, right? Like you can't, and also like think about this. And Hermosi talks about this all the time. Russell talked about this all the time. I 100% agree with this. The $50,000 client is a way easier client than the $5 client, right?
No doubt.
If you sell something to somebody, right, and it's going to cost them $50, they're gonna be like, well, what are the 10 things that I'm going to get out of this, right? There's going to give you a laundry list of ways of what they're going to get for the $50. $50,000 person is just going to freaking wire you $50,000 and be like, hey man, thanks. Looking forward to working with you. And that's what happened.
Yeah.
And that's what happens with all of this. And, it's interesting how that works, but that's just what it is. So, so if you're in a line of business and you want more qualified leads, more qualified prospects, more qualified clients, better homeowners to work with, better lenders to work with, whatever the case is, have a higher, a higher benchmark to work with you, have them read a book, have them listen to a podcast, things like that. It's kind of a no-brainer.
The way I look at it, and I think his name is Pennington, last name Pennington. He puts out a lot of good content, but he's a part of the Russell Brunson world. And he said that every great movement starts with a book, 100%. And you look at the Bible, all started with the book. You talk about 10X movement, 10X growth, 10X growth content started with a book. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It was a self-published, ghostwritten book. Did so well, turned into events, turned into a board game, and then turned into this insane just movement that everybody has fallen in love with. So it all begins with a book, and where you take it is based off of your creativity and how much energy is behind it.
No doubt. Ian, I don't know how we're going to ask Mike this last question.
Yeah, I was just literally thinking the same thing. I was like, all right, how do we close this up? Because we ask every single one of our guests, like, what's like a favorite book or like a good book or podcast that like you're into right now. So maybe a podcast, like what are you into right now? Or like something that, obviously go read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's a super common theme around here. And it is a life-changing book, but like what's something you're reading now or something you're listening to now, or maybe something that you even published for one of your friends, one of your clients.
Yeah. So the current book that I'm listening to on my runs, I run pretty much right around 4 days or 5 days a week, 5-mile loops. And I'm listening to The War of Art. You probably have heard of The Art of War, right? Sun Tzu, but this one is called The War of Art. It's a phenomenal book so far. I love it. The one that I recommend, if there's anyone that I recommend in regards to Audible, it is Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. And that is one you don't want to read, you want to listen to. So the one I'm listening to it's good. So I have not finished it. It talks a little bit about resistance and how resistance is sort of like the devil, very much like in Outwitting the Devil. So they're very similar, but if there's anyone that has changed my life outside of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Outwitting the Devil it is.
All right, sounds like a plan. We'll get that up in the show notes, and we appreciate that. I don't think we covered it. I know you mentioned it earlier, but if someone wants to find you, they want to contact you, where's the best place to find you on the internet or a website? How can someone get a hold of you?
Yeah, it's easy to find me on Instagram. I have 2 accounts. One's my personal that I get crazy with politics and just viewpoints, all that. That's called @TheDreamStarter. The other one is $1 Million Book Pro. But the website that I recommend if you're looking to get a book done is dreamstarterspublishing.com. You can schedule time with me directly, and I can explain the entire process from start to finish. We work with entrepreneurs who love freedom and want to build a business in many directions.
Hell yeah, man. Appreciate your time. I should be meeting you in person, I guess, towards the end of June. I'll probably pop out to that event.
Nice.
So I'll take that ride across the goddamn state into the state I hate the most. I'm not a fan of Ohio. I've had one decent experience in Columbus. A friend of mine lives there, and he hosted an event, and it was decent. But other than that, man, I'm not a fan of that state, dude. I'm out. Not for me, dude.
See, Cleveland has always treated me well. I've been to a few events there. Philadelphia's the traffic should be. I would think that you'd want to get out of Philadelphia and go to Cleveland. The traffic's way less.
Yeah, I don't know. It's what you know. I left Maryland, which was a horrible traffic state as well, and I moved back to Philly, which is just as it's an old city, man. It happens. It is what it is. So
cool. I'll see you there.
I Mike. Certainly appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it. Let me know if I can help it out in any way.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Real Estate Reserve podcast. Do us a favor and like, comment, and share our broadcast. It helps the algorithm and helps us spread the word too. Till next time, thank you for tuning in.